Good evening, Africa. It is the 21st day of September 2017, a day set aside to spread a message of peace and spread hope. Today also marks exactly 4 years since the Westgate Mall attack right here in the capital, Nairobi. We'll also focus on the electoral body IEBC, a body tasked with the all-important task of delivering Kenya's presidential rerun. This after they changed the polls date from October 17th to October 26th. We'll have our own political analyst right here in studio, composed of Kevin Sowidi as well as Dennis Ndhumbi. And in Uganda, my colleague Solomon Serawanja will join me shortly with the very latest after security forces arrested activists opposed to the proposal to lift the presidential age limit. This is Bottomline Africa. My name is Yusuf Ibrahim. Let's now take a look at Africa in 60 seconds. Kenya's repeat presidential election now moved up by 9 days as the president insists the judiciary denied him an obvious win. Former African Union Commission Chair Lamini Zuma sworn in as an MP in South Africa as she prepares for a presidential contest. Outgoing Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf campaigns for the only female presidential candidate in the October election. Plus, the standoff between the government and the opposition continues in Togo as MPs skip a referendum vote in Parliament. Welcome once again. If you're just joining us, this is Bottomline Africa and the program begins right now. So let's take a look at our Twitter poll tonight, and we are asking you, do you believe the IEBC will address all concerns raised by October 26th? Do you believe the electoral body, that is IEBC, will address all concerns raised by October 26th? Remember, they changed that election rerun, the presidential rerun, from October 17th to October 26th. Our Twitter handle is at KTN News. You can as well tweet me at Yusuf Ibra. Always remember to use the hashtag Bottomline Africa, and that will form the basis of our discussion tonight. Now, we begin from right here in Kenya, where President Uhuru Kenyatta will be ushering in his 56th birthday with a hope to retain his seat. October 26th, which has been announced as the fresh presidential election date, happens to be the president's birthday. Opposition leader Raila Odinga, on the other hand, will be approaching the election with a hope to deny Uhuru the presidency as a birthday gift. The IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati, in a statement said the new date is informed by the need to streamline their processes in line with the final presidential petition verdict released yesterday. Earlier, Kenyan President, of course, Uhuru Kenyatta, insisted that the judiciary performed a constitutional coup by nullifying results of the August 8th election. He, however, says he will comply with the order to return to the ballot.
That the will of the people of Kenya was subverted by our courts. The Supreme Court owes Kenyans an explanation on how such a monstrous injustice could have taken place. Not only did the judgment rob the Kenyan people of their democratic right as exercised on August 8th, but it also now has the potential to throw our country into judicial chaos.
Over to some political development in South Africa now, where the former African Union Commission chairperson, Nkosazana Lamini Zuma, has been sworn in today as MP in South Africa for the ruling African National Congress Party, that is ANC. This is seen as a move to bolster her bid to become South African president after Jacob Zuma's term ends in 2019. Lamidi Zuma will be replacing Pule Mabe, who resigned earlier this month to quote-unquote seek other undisclosed interests. Analysts see Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa and Mrs. Zuma's front-runners in the presidential race. There has been speculation that Zuma might consider reshuffling his cabinet to accommodate his ex-wife.
His Excellency Africa, given their comparative strengths and capabilities.
Definitely, it is a very active day, politically speaking, in Africa. Now over to Uganda, where the Lord Mayor of Uganda's capital, Kampala, Arias Lukwago, was arrested this morning over what police said was intent to lead protest against scrapping the age limit for standing for president. They say they found anti-age limit T-shirts in his office at City Hall. The arrest came as MP Raphael Magiezi from the ruling NRM tabled a motion in Parliament seeking leave to prepare a bill to scrap the upper age limit. Now, the country's age limit for the presidency is currently 75. That means that President Yoweri Museveni, who is now 73, can stand for the next election if the bill is passed into law. Later, Parliament was adjourned after members opposed to scrapping the presidential age limit became persistently disruptive.
No inconvenience in transport.
Of course, my colleague Solomon Serawanja is going to join us shortly and tell us more from Kampala, Uganda. Now, a Rwandan opposition official and 8 others were charged on Wednesday with forming an armed group and seeking to overthrow the government, indictments that could see them jailed for life. Now, Boniface Twagiramana, the vice president of the FDU in Kingi movement, denied the charges in the Kigali court. The party's leader, Victoria Ingabire, is already in jail, convicted of conspiring to form an armed group and other charges in 2013. Now, the prosecutor said the defendants had joined P5, describing it as an umbrella group of 5 organizations, including FDU in Kingi, operating outside the country. President Paul Kagame has also faced mounting criticism for what activists say are widespread abuses, a muzzling of independent media and suppression of political opposition, accusations he, of course, dismisses. Now, over to some developments in Liberia, where Liberia's outgoing President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf will actively campaign for the handful of female candidates contesting elections in October as she steps down as Africa's first female head of state following more than a decade in power. But some question whether her time in office has benefited women in politics in what remains a traditional West African nation.
Liberia heads to the polls on October 10 to replace outgoing President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Africa's first elected female head of state. With only one woman out of 20 candidates running for the top job, her successor will likely be a man, as were most lawmakers, with women making up only 16% of approved candidates for parliamentary seats.
Irrespective of how many women win or lose, women have got to stay in the race, and women have got to stay on the political landscape. And I will encourage women, as many women as possible, to stay the course and not be deterred because one didn't win over here. You never know which one of us is going to win.
The stereotype that a woman's place is in the home still permeates Liberian society and limits women's involvement in public life.
Another stereotype is, what more do the women want? There's a perception that because we've had a female president in Liberia, that everything has been handled.
Sirleaf has said she owes her victories in 2005 and 2011 to women coming out in force to vote for her. But some see troubling signs that it is getting tougher for women to replicate her success.
We are at the crossroads where there is potential backlash in terms of women getting into formal politics in the country, women being elected in the country. It is cause to worry.
While Sirleaf's male Vice President Joseph Boakai is looking to replace her, the outgoing president says she will actively campaign for the handful of female candidates contesting the elections.
Of course, we're going to definitely give you more details about that election in Liberia within this program. Now, more than 500 people have died so far in a cholera epidemic that is sweeping the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, outbreaks of the waterborne disease occur regularly in Congo, mainly due to poor sanitation and lack of access to clean drinking water. But this year's epidemic, which has already hit at least 10 urban areas, including the capital, Kinshasa, is particularly worrying as it comes at a time when about 1.4 million people have also been displaced by violence in the central Kasai region. In Kimpese, in central Congo, doctors from Medicine Sans Frontiers, MSF, have set up a makeshift clinic that has been treating some of the worst cases in the region. The experts are trying to stop the spread of the disease while at the same time treating those infected. The WHO said at least 528 people had died last week, and the epidemic had spread to 20 of Congo's 26 provinces.
The lack of sanitation, it is really dirty. As you can see from the population and the surrounding around us, they have no toilets. There is lack of access to clean water. All those are factors that contribute to the spread of infectious diseases.
We
always see children falling sick and their parents don't understand the symptoms of cholera. But when the child is taken to hospital, doctors tell you that the child is suffering from diarrhea. And this is taken to the cholera treatment, but it's often too late and the child dies after that. So the government needs to sensitize the residents of Pakajuma so that they can understand how cholera is treated.
Le début de l'année, plus de 24 000 cas de choléra ont été.
Since the beginning of the year, there has been more than 24,000 cases of cholera, and half of those cases were treated by MSF team on the ground. Unfortunately, there has been some of the death, and that is why it is important to once again raise the alarm on the epidemic which has spread throughout the country and to call on all stakeholders to get involved.
Que l'ensemble des acteurs s'impliquent davantage.
Over to Uganda once again, where the debate on whether to scrap that presidential limit from the constitution is still raging on in Kampala. And now I'm joined live by my colleague Solomon Serawanja. Solomon, good evening. I understand there are some arrests that were made today, and earlier I saw footage of some of the members of parliament, I believe from the opposition, who had some red band on their head. What does that symbolize, as much as you give us an update on what is happening there? It seems we have a communication problem there, but we're going to link up with Solomon shortly. But for now, let's cross over to Zimbabwe, where the country has started an electronic register of voters ahead of the presidential and parliamentary elections scheduled in the country next year. Now, the exercise, which was launched on September 14th, is expected to go on until January 15th and help create a new voters' roll. Now, the biometric voter registration will capture a voters' fingerprints, facial features, and identity card details. About 5.8 million people registered in the voters' roll used in the last election that was back in the year 2013. Zimbabwe's Electoral Commission has said it needs $274 million to finance next year's polls, in which President Robert Mugabe plans to contest aged 94. Zimbabwe is suffering severe cash shortages, and Mugabe's government is struggling to pay its workers on time, while many businesses can't fund the inputs they need.
For the first time, because previously I didn't have the chance because of other commitments, educational commitments. It made it difficult for me to come and register to vote. But since this new drive has been initiated, I thought it was best for me to come and register to vote so that we can also contribute our voice as a young person.
I'm just exercising my right as a citizen of this country. I believe we have got a part to play, especially as the youth of this country, especially determining the future of the next generation is concerned.
Elections are well. I have come to register so that I am eligible to vote in next year's election, so as to choose a new government.
Well, let's once again link up with my colleague Solomon Serawanja, who's in Kampala, Uganda. Now, Solomon, apologies, we couldn't reach you earlier. Good evening. And it seems the Ugandan security forces had a very busy day today. We understand there are several arrests that were made. And from earlier footage, it saw some of the members of the opposition, I believe, who had some red band on their head. What does that symbolize? And where is that debate that, is seeking to remove the presidential age limit from Uganda's constitution?
Well, a very good evening to you, Yusuf. What I can say is it is the day that many people have been looking forward to. It has been quite a very busy day for the security forces. Several arrests, as you said, have been done today, including the arrest of the Kampala Mayor, Elias Lukwago, who is right now under police custody. We're yet to know the details, whether he has been released or not yet. So today, it was expected that members of parliament from the NRM ruling party were supposed to table a motion seeking leave of parliament to go and draft a private member's bill to amend the constitution, so to speak, to remove the age limit cap of 75 years and just leave it to any eligible voter. Members of parliament from the opposition really raised their voices loud, first of all condemning the heavy deployment around the August assembly, and that was one of the reasons why they couldn't even let the members from the NRM party even say anything. So it has been a hot debate in parliament that even prompted the deputy speaker of parliament, Jacob Olanya, to adjourn the house until Tuesday next week. So the NRM has a weekend to reorganize themselves and come back to table that motion seeking leave of parliament. But it is something that everyone is discussing here in the country, speaking of which, to discuss this and much more on what this means for Uganda's political space is Crispin Kaheru, who is the coordinator for the Citizens Coalition on Electoral Democracy. It's good to have you on Bottomline Africa. Crispin, you saw the events that happened today. What do you make of the whole scenarios that happen in parliament, but also out of parliament?
Well, thank you very much, Solomon, and good evening, viewers. First, my take is that I think this debate that we are having in Uganda right now on whether to keep the age limit or not to keep the age limit is completely misplaced. Because I think one of the things that we need to understand is that right now the country faces multiple problems that are more serious than a conversation around whether to remove an age limit for presidential candidates or not. First of all, the economy is in a terrible slowdown. This is a first in many years, since about 2011. We're talking about a spate of murders that have been happening without any attention or any serious attention from the government. We're talking about heightened corruption. We're talking about all these issues that are happening. People going hungry in different parts of the country, a first in so many years, and we're here debating whether or not to keep the age limit. One, I think we are completely misplaced in terms of the debate, but as I've said before, now that the debate is here, I think we as a country need to recollect ourselves in terms of understanding how do we locate this conversation about the constitution amendment. First and foremost, we need to look back. In 2011, when we were going for the 2011 elections, the parliament, and to be very specific, the Parliamentary Committee on Legal Affairs, gave Ugandans assurance that after the 2011 elections, there was going to be an omnibus bill that was going to handle constitution amendments and electoral reforms. Yeah. That bill did not appear anywhere. Come 2015, we had the same plea from Parliament telling us that come the 10th Parliament, we're going to have an omnibus bill.
It wasn't there.
It's going to do the constitution amendment and the electoral reforms. It wasn't there. Now, why do we single out one amendment in the Constitution and present it at this particular time? I think it is full of deceit. We are being dishonest as Ugandans, and those people that are promoting and abating the conversation about an amendment of the Constitution without taking into account people's opinions, Ugandans' opinions, are being deceitful, and I think they are pursuing their own vested interests.
Well, the NRM says that they have a deadline of April 2018 to implement the recommendations of the Supreme Court in the Amama Mbabazi petition that challenged the presidential elections. And so they're saying we don't have a lot of time, so let's rally behind a private member to have these amendments done before it's too late.
Why does the private member bring only one bill, one amendment?
Well, there are a number of clauses.
We are supposed to see if it is a private member's bill, which is really awkward that a private member will deliver a bill that is supposed to be, I mean, ideally introduced by government, I mean, on a constitution, that touches on a constitution. Ideally, what private members do is to present a bill that touches on other laws, subsidiary laws, not the constitution. The constitution is the soul of the nation. You do not amend it by a private member's bill. That's supposed to be a government bill. So we're seeing this happening in our Uganda today, of a private member bringing a bill to parliament. That is unheard of. That is unheard of.
Well, it could be unheard of, but to be exact, Cabinet has said today in a press conference that they are putting all their weight
so then why doesn't Cabinet then bring a government bill to parliament?
Well, they're saying they have other duties they're doing, so they can back up the private member's bill.
The sole responsibility of Cabinet is to sift through bills and present bills through the leader of government business. That is what it is. So we cannot see a private member. It is so awkward. It is strange. It is unheard of. It is, you know, it is colloquial to see a private member bringing a bill where Cabinet is behind. I think it is really something that we are seeing, and amazing things don't cease happening in Uganda. This is one of them.
Well, I'll tell you this, that the NRM is very confident because they have the numbers in parliament, but that narrative was sort of changed today when people from the opposition really stood up.
I'll tell you something. This is not about the NRM versus the opposition. There is a bipartisan debate around this particular amendment, and that is why you have seen that some of the members of the National Resistance Movement were aligned with those members who are anti-age limit bill. So we cannot say that there are political divides here, NRM versus the opposition. Now, that has been completely demystified, and come next week, once this motion is moved on the table, we're going to see a shocker, because this is going to be a bipartisan conversation.
Well, I'll tell you, the NRM is also they're alive to the fact that there is need to consult the people, and they're saying, well, let's first of all take leave and then we go back to the people, and that the Constitution provides avenues under which it can be amended, including a referendum, including members of parliament moving this bill. So they have a right to sort of speak out what perhaps they feel needs to be amended in the Constitution. Well, it's their right.
The bottom line is we've seen a lot of dishonesty coming from the August House around the presentation of political and electoral reforms. So this is not going to be an exception. But number two, we also need to understand that whatever way is used to have a conversation around this particular amendment, that way had better be as consultative as possible and bringing the Ugandan at the center. Whether it is by way of referendum, whether it is by way of a national dialogue, whether it is by way of national consultations occurring across the country, the citizen has to be at the center of that conversation. That is when Ugandans will feel that they have pronounced themselves. Let me tell you something, Solomon. When we talk about a constitution, you have touched the soul of the nation. Once you touch the soul of the nation, you are actually summoning each and every citizen of understanding age, in this case 18 years and above, to pronounce him or herself on an amendment to the Constitution. That's why I'm saying whichever way it takes, that process that touches on the Constitution had better be as consultative as possible, whether that means a national dialogue, whether it means a referendum, whether it means a national consultation. It has to be as consultative as possible, putting the citizen at the center.
Well, putting the citizen at the center, I can assure you something, Crispin, that come Tuesday next week, the Speaker of Parliament says, the Deputy Speaker, Jacob Olanya, says that the motion could be tabled. What are your expectations next week?
It's going to be mayhem. It's going to be mayhem. I'll tell you that. Because, let me take you back. Last year, we had a conversation with the parliamentarians of Uganda. And 73% of them told us that they are not in favor of removing the age limits. Then we went back and consulted the entire country through a research, a scientific research. 75% of the Ugandans told us they do not agree with removing the age limits from the constitution. They do not think it is necessary. They think it should be left as it is. So when these legislators come out at this particular moment in time to say that they are advocating, they are championing for the removal of age limits, who are they speaking for? Because they are representatives. Are they representing the Ugandans' voice, or are they representing their own voice?
Crispin Kahero, thank you so much for sharing your views with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Solomon.
Well, the eyes will be on Parliament again next week on Tuesday as we all watch whether the motion to seek leave of Parliament to draft a private member's bill to lift the age limit of 75 for anyone to stand for presidency will be scrapped, or it will actually be maintained in our law books. All right, let's go for a short break. Bottomline Africa returns after this. Stay with us.